I never thought a pot of chili could turn me into the most hated man on Pine Ridge Way. But that is exactly where this whole ridiculous thing started. With tomatoes, cumin, smoked paprika, and one neighbor who believed the entire world should smell like lemon disinfectant and silence. My name is Logan Vance. I was 34, single, working from home as a freelance video editor, living in a quiet little neighborhood outside Denver, where every lawn looked trimmed by laser and every mailbox looked like it had anxiety. I was not loud. I did not throw parties. I did not blast music at midnight. My biggest crime was that I liked to cook, and not sad cooking either. Real cooking. Food that filled a house. Food that made you pause in the hallway and think, okay, life is not all bad. That Sunday, I had a big pot of chili simmering on the stove. Beef, onions, garlic, chipotle peppers, the kind of smell that wraps around you like a blanket. I had the kitchen window cracked open because spring was finally warming up, and honestly, I thought I was blessing the neighborhood. Then someone knocked. I opened the door and found Martha Sterling standing on my porch, holding a handkerchief to her nose like I had just opened a sewer line. Martha lived 3 houses down, chaired the residential aesthetics board, and smiled like every smile cost her money. She looked past me into my kitchen and said, "Mr. Vance, do you realize your food odor is traveling?" Food odor, not aroma, not smell. Odor, I laughed a little because I thought she was joking. It's just chili. Her eyes narrowed. Exactly that one word told me everything. Exactly like chili was not dinner, but a moral failure. I said, "I can close the window if it's bothering you." She tilted her head. That would be a start. But some of us moved here for peace, not for aggressive cooking. Aggressive cooking. I remember standing there with a wooden spoon in my hand, wondering how a pot of beans and beef had become an attack. 2 days later, I got the letter. Official stationery. Pine Ridge Homeowners Association. Notice of violation. Nuisance odors detectable beyond property boundaries. Its potential impact on peaceful enjoyment and property values. Property values. Of course, in neighborhoods like mine, that phrase was basically a loaded weapon. I stood in my kitchen reading that letter 3 times, and with every sentence, something inside me got tighter. I had spent years being the easygoing guy, the guy who apologized first, the guy who made himself smaller, so difficult people could feel bigger. But this was my home, my kitchen, my food. And somehow Martha had made me feel like I needed permission to exist. I tried being polite. First, that was my mistake. I baked banana bread. Simple, sweet, no smoke, no spice. No aggressive anything. I wrapped a loaf in parchment paper, walked it over, and rang Martha's bell. She opened the door, saw the bread, and gave it the same look people give expired milk. I thought maybe we got off on the wrong foot. I said, "Peace offering." She did not take it. "I don't eat gluten," she said. And frankly, Logan, this is not about one incident. It's about boundaries. I looked down at the warm loaf in my hands. It's banana bread. It is still a scent. That night, I ate half the loaf myself over the sink, angry in a way that felt pathetic because the whole thing was so small. Gosh, that was the worst part. It was small enough that people would laugh if I complained, but constant enough that it started eating at me. The next week, I grilled 2 burgers in my backyard. 2. I had barely flipped them when Martha appeared at the fence with her phone pointed at me. "Documenting," she said. "For what? For the board?" I stared at her. "You're recording my hamburgers," she said. "I'm recording a pattern." That word stuck with me. Pattern. She was building a case against my dinner. A city officer actually showed up the next afternoon after she reported unregulated smoke activity. He was a tired-looking guy named Officer Higgins, and the poor man looked embarrassed before he even reached my porch. "Sir," he said, "we received a complaint about a possible outdoor burning situation." I pointed to the grill. It was burgers. He blinked. Burgers. 2 of them. He looked over at Martha standing on the sidewalk with her arms folded, then back at me. His mouth twitched like he was fighting for his life not to laugh. "Well," he said, clearing his throat, "as long as you're using a legal grill and not burning trash, there's no violation." Martha snapped. "So we just allow smoke now?" Officer Higgins turned to her and said, very calmly, "Ma'am, people are allowed to cook food." I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt humiliated. It's because even though she lost that round, she had dragged a uniformed officer to my house over hamburgers. She had made my normal life feel like something suspicious. That night, I sat on my couch scrolling videos, half angry, half defeated, when a barbecue competition clip popped up. Massive smokers, crowds cheering. Judges biting into ribs like they had found religion. Smoke everywhere. Not hidden. Not apologized for. Celebrated. And I just sat there thinking, wait a second. Martha hated smell. Martha hated smoke. Martha hated anything that refused to be beige. So maybe I had been approaching this wrong. Maybe the answer was not to make myself smaller. Maybe the answer was to become unforgettable. The next morning, I drove to a welding shop outside town called Titan Forge Welding. The owner, Travis, was a huge man with a gray beard, oil on his hands, and a laugh that sounded like gravel in a coffee can. I told him I needed a smoker. He showed me a few backyard models. I shook my head. "I need something bigger." "How big?" he asked. I looked him dead in the eye. "Big enough to make a woman 3 houses down. Rethink her life choices." Travis stared at me for 2 seconds, then burst out laughing. After I explained the whole story, he wiped his eyes and said, "Son, I've got something in the back called the Midnight Express. Built it for a catering guy who disappeared before pickup. 12 feet long. Reverse flow. Firebox like a bank vault. It'll cook a whole wedding and offend every coward in a 5-block radius." I said, "I'll take it." When that smoker arrived on a flatbed truck, the entire neighborhood came outside. Kids pointed, dogs barked, curtains moved. Martha stood on her lawn in white linen pants, looking like someone had parked a warship in her church pew. "What is that?" she called. I smiled. "Dinner equipment." Her face went pale. Now I wish I could say my first cook was glorious. It was not. It was a disaster. I loaded that firebox like I was trying to signal outer space. Thick gray smoke poured out, rolled over the fence, swallowed my patio, and made my eyes water so badly I looked like I was grieving a relative. Within 20 minutes, Officer Higgins was back. He stepped into my yard, looked at the smoker, looked at the smoke cloud, and said, "Logan, what in God's name are you doing?" "Learning," I coughed. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Learn faster." Even I had to admit Martha had a point that day. The ribs came out, tasting like a campfire had committed a crime. My dog refused to stand near me. My hoodie smelled like burnt oak for a week. But something had changed. I was embarrassed, yes, but I was not afraid anymore. I knew I needed help, so I found it at a little roadside joint called Smoky Oak Tavern. The owner was a woman named Beatrice Finch, 62 years old, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, and known across 3 counties for brisket. That could make grown men stare quietly at a wall. I walked in, ordered ribs, and almost changed religions on the spot. After lunch, I told her my story, the chili, the letters, Martha, the giant smoker, the police visit. Beatrice listened without smiling. Then she leaned on the counter and said, "So you bought a dragon because your neighbor complained about soup." "Chili," I said. "That does not make it less insane." But then she grinned. I like insane. Beatrice agreed to teach me, but she did not make it easy. For the first 2 weeks, she barely let me touch meat. It was all fire, wood, airflow, patience, bad smoke screams. She told me one morning before sunrise, Good smoke whispers. I learned oak from hickory, cherry from pecan. I learned that barbecue is not about force. It is about control. It is about knowing when to open the vent, when to leave it alone, when to trust the heat, when to wait. And slowly, the Midnight Express stopped feeling like a weapon. It became an instrument. The first time I made ribs, Beatrice called. Not embarrassing. I nearly cried. The first time my next-door neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, leaned over the fence and asked what smelled so good. I handed him a plate. He came back 10 minutes later with his wife and 2 folding chairs. That became the pattern. Every Saturday, a few more neighbors wandered over. Someone brought cornbread. Someone brought lemonade. Someone brought lawn chairs. My backyard, the place Martha had tried to turn into evidence, became the warmest spot on the street. And Martha hated it. She posted online that I was commercializing a nuisance. People replied with pictures of brisket sandwiches. She warned about traffic. Someone commented, "It's foot traffic, Martha." We are walking to ribs. For the first time since I moved there, Pine Ridge Way. Felt like an actual neighborhood instead of a brochure. Then Beatrice told me about the Great Plains BBQ Showdown. "Enter," she said. I laughed against real pitmasters. "You want to beat Martha or not?" I said, "I thought this was about barbecue now." Beatrice smiled. "Exactly. That's why you're ready." Competition day was chaos. Smoke, tents, timers, knives, coolers, men with beards taking chicken thighs more seriously than surgery. My team was ridiculous. Beatrice as mentor, Mr. Jenkins as unofficial hype man, and my friend Amber making signs that said, "Vance Smoke Works, legally delicious." Then Martha showed up, clipboard, sunglasses. Tight smile. "Well," she said, stopping at my station. "This explains a lot. You always wanted attention." I was trimming brisket, hands steady for once. "No, Martha," I said, "wanted dinner." "You made it a movement." For the first time, she had no answer. The day stretched. Forever. Chicken at noon. Ribs at 1.30. Pork at 3. Brisket at 4.30. Every turn and box felt like handing over a piece of my nervous system. By the time awards started, I was exhausted, smoky, and convinced I had ruined everything. We did not place in chicken. Nothing for ribs, nothing for pork. I saw Martha smiling near the back, already satisfied. Then came brisket. Third place went to a team from Topeka. Second place went to last year's champion. I lowered my head, ready to clap for somebody else. In first place brisket, the announcer shouted, "Goes to Vance Smoke Works." For a second, I did not move. Then my whole street exploded. Mr. Jenkins yelled so loud people turned around. Amber started crying. Beatrice just nodded like she had known all along. I walked to that stage with smoke in my clothes and my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. When they handed me the blue ribbon, I looked out and saw Martha standing completely still. No clipboard raised, no phone recording, no speech. Just silence. And that silence tasted better than any trophy. A week later, I hosted a neighborhood barbecue. Not revenge this time. A celebration. The Midnight Express puffed gently in the yard, sending thin blue smoke into the evening air. People laughed. Kids ran around. Someone played old country music from a speaker. Then Martha came to my gate. Everyone got quiet. She held a glass bowl covered in foil. "I made potato salad," she said stiffly. "It pairs well with brisket." It was not an apology. Not exactly. But from Martha, it was practically a confession. I took the bowl and said, "Thanks. Come eat." She hesitated. Then she stepped into the yard. And that is the part people still argue about. Some say, I should have turned her away. Some say kindness was the real victory. Me. I still don't know. All I know is that a woman who tried to shame me out of my own kitchen ended up standing in my backyard eating the food she once called a nuisance. So tell me, was I petty or was I right? Have you ever watched someone try to control a neighborhood, a workplace, a family, just because they could? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Ho Drama Neighbor for more, because I promise you, the real smoke always starts when people decide they are done staying quiet.